Welcome to Shamrock Reddit Stories, entitled People Edition, where a police sergeant threatens to arrest OP and the father of the chief of police for standing up to the sergeant's entitled wife. This one is from Dark 909911, and it's called Where is Your Logic? First, the customary backstory. My parents were landlords for a building owned by a good friend in exchange for cheaper rent here in rural New Brunswick. They collected the rent, maintained the soft water treatment room, and mowed the lawn with the Ryder mower supplied with gas, among a few other things. Never once did they move in or out any tenants in all of their years there. They only stopped because Dad got dementia and Mom had a major heart failure. Their landlord still kept the rent the same, and the landlord's son became the new landlord. On to the story. A tenant had lived in the building for years, and I guess he decided to move according to the call that I just had. This is the more or less of it. Wayne, which is his real name because he doesn't have Reddit, and I couldn't care less. Hey, I know your parents haven't been the landlord here for years, but do you think you can pay for my moving truck? I know they both died, so I know you got your inheritance, and you can afford it. Me, yes, both Mom and Dad are dead. Thank you for the condolences. I'm not going to pay for your moving truck. You have to be utterly crazy to think that. Wayne, if your Mom and Dad were alive, they would have helped. I know it because they helped when I moved in. This is just not true. It was the owner who helped him because he was living in his car and the owner took pity on him. Back to the story. Me, I am telling you again and listen closely. I am not paying for anything. Wayne, well, looks like I am stuck here. Will you loan me $400 then? They won't let me have my stuff until I pay. I had a great laugh as I blocked his number and thought you great folks might get a giggle too. Blah, blah, blah. The title of the story is perfect. Where is the guy's logic? Blah, blah, blah. Is that enough commentary for you? Good. Let's go to the next one. This one's from J.L. Scott 0731, and it's called The Corporate Manager Got Me. Okay, so I bag groceries at a chain supermarket, and a while back I had a Karen go through the usual "I'm going to get you fired" BS over us being out of a specific item, yada yada yada. Being my cheeky self, I told her that I was already fired, but I just keep showing back up to work until the police tell me that I can't work there anymore. The background on this comment is that lower management jokingly tells us we're fired no less than 5 times a day. My department manager is turning bright red at this comment, trying to hold in laughter until she gets the "oh crap" look on her face. The corporate manager, who is an all-business, no-nonsense lady, is right behind me and asks what the problem is. Karen goes on her spiel about firing me, I'm an unhelpful employee, etc. The corporate manager tells me that is certainly no way to treat a customer and starts laying into me pretty hard. She tells me I'm fired, much to Karen's proud delight. Then she says, however, at our earlier meeting today, when we discussed your last termination, the police have communicated that they will not be arriving to serve you your court-ordered termination, so just go back to work. Then she just turned and walked away. Karen just stood there dumbfounded. Our other manager came from the back where corporate went and said that she was cracking up. This is a woman who is extremely serious and never cracks a smile. Now when she sees me, she asks me, "The police haven't come to fire you yet?" LMFAO. Just when you thought that you could count on the corporate manager to consistently be a butthole, she goes and pulls a stunt like this. How are you going to know when to joke and when not to? Best to leave the joking up to her. This one's from Who Knew This, NJ, and it's called I'd Trump Your Sergeant with a Chief. I know an NJ. Hey, Noel Joy, what's up? So, a little backstory. I have been an electrician for almost 30 years. About 25 years ago, I worked at the Big Orange Apron do-it-yourself store. I liked helping people, and I had seen a lot of do-it-yourselfers make some dangerous electrical mistakes. Making electrical mistakes could cause a fire or kill someone. I liked to give them advice and show them how to do it right. I would gauge people's abilities concerning electrical matters while speaking to them, and sometimes I would just tell them that they are better off hiring an electrician. Sometimes they would ask me if I could do it, but I never used that as a work opportunity. Call me crazy, but I never thought it was right to try to get work that way. I didn't want people to think I was trying to get them to hire me. I would recommend local decent electricians in the area who I knew were stand-up guys and didn't push them to just one electrician. I usually didn't work in the area where I lived. I worked at that store for a couple of years until I just got tired of it and needed to spend more time with the family. So, of course, every time I would go into the store after I had quit working there, other associates would direct people who had questions to me. Unless the person was totally rude, I would always oblige. I have a pure hatred for people being rude and ignorant toward others. It's like a switch flips inside my head and my buffer goes away and no one knows, including myself, what I'll say or do. It also seems the older I get, the faster the switch gets flipped. I usually have a longer fuse when they are acting like that with me for some reason. Now the story. I was in the Orange Apron store last Saturday getting some supplies to do some electrical work at a buddy's home he had just moved into. While I was there, I noticed an older gentleman, I think he had to be at least 70, looking a bit confused. He was looking at breakers and panels. I asked him if he needed help. He jokingly asked if I could tell by the look of determination on his face. We both chuckled and proceeded to talk about his project. He was helping his son install a hot tub for his grandson's new house as a wedding gift. We got to talking and I got him on track to get everything he needed. Afterward, we just kept talking about life in general. I love speaking to older people as they have seen more in life. As we were in deep conversation about old stores that were around years and years ago, I hear a snapping of fingers and a clearing of the throat. I turn to my right and there she is, the wild Karen. She was in her 30s. As we look at her, she blurts out, "When you're done with that old guy, I need help, and I've been watching you waste time with him." I kinda smile at her and turn back to the older guy. She proceeds to continuously snap her fingers and yell, "Hello!" So I turn to her and snap my finger and return the hello. Then we both laughed at her. Well, this enraged the Karen. She steps closer to us and starts to yell, "How dare you! You're going to lose your job today." Well, I am not one to tell someone that I am not employed here. If you are too dense to realize that I am not wearing a bright orange apron, I am not going to waste my breath. She keeps rambling on and on loudly. At this point, I have had enough, as she started to insult the other fella. I proceeded to snap my fingers and said in a stern voice, "F off." At that, the waterworks started to flow. We looked at each other and just shook our heads at the spectacle this Karen was making. All of a sudden, a guy pops out of nowhere. She starts crying to him how we verbally abused her. We started to laugh at her as the guy flashes a badge and proceeds to tell us that he is a local cop, a sergeant, and her husband. Then he says if we don't apologize, he will arrest us. Now, I am very aware of laws and rights and such, and I wasn't about to apologize. The old guy beats me to it and says, "As my friend told your wife, F off." I look at him and couldn't help but chuckle with admiration for the older guy. Just as the sergeant was starting to approach us, another fella around my age comes bopping around the corner. The sergeant seemed to get more arrogant as the guy got closer. The sergeant says, "Hey, Chief, could you call for a unit for these two while I cuff them?" The chief looks at him. Then he looks at us and says, Dad, did you get everything for the hot tub? Then he turns to the sergeant, and as the color drained from his face, the sergeant says, "This is your dad?" The chief says, "You're not even a detective, and you figured it out." The chief then says, "I've been in the next aisle for over 10 minutes listening to you and your wife harass my dad and his friend, and I think you and your wife need to go home, and I want to see you in my office at 0800 tomorrow morning." It was hilarious watching the sergeant drag his wife away, telling her to shut up as she was still hurling insults. I think the sergeant finally got through to her a few aisles away, as all of a sudden you hear her say, "Oh my God!" The three of us ended up chatting for about 30 minutes after that, before we all went our separate ways. Now, we all know that there are a lot more good cops than bad cops out there. Having said that, it is always such a satisfying feeling to see an abusive and power-hungry cop get caught and put in their place. And the Karen getting put in her place, too, is what I would consider a twofer. Hooray for us. Thanks for watching and or listening, and we'll get together again real soon.